Now that everyone's hopefully had a bit of time to get to grips with the basics of Elden Ring Nightreign, let me help you start to master all of the mechanics. With nearly 200 hours in Nightreign myself and having beaten every Nightlord solo, over the next few videos I'll be giving you my top 30 or so tips to help you master every single aspect of Nightreign, from new and returning mechanics to tips and tricks and even mistakes to avoid. This series will have it all. So grab your notepad, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss my future guides, and let's jump into the most important things you need to know about Elden Ring Nightreign. So first things first, to kick it off, make sure you do the tutorial. And believe it or not, this goes doubly for people who have come from Elden Ring and who are already quite acquainted with the game. The tutorial is a pretty good one as far as FromSoft games go. It'll guide you through a series of on-screen prompts and events to help familiarize yourself with the controls and mechanics. And as I say, this is especially crucial if you have come from Elden Ring to shake off some of the muscle memory and learn the new controls. There's a few particularly important new mechanics that it will be harder to teach yourself as a veteran of Souls-likes, as opposed to if Nightreign is your first experience with a game like this. And also please do note, as always with FromSoftware's games, there's a moderately tough boss at the end of the tutorial who you don't need to beat to complete the tutorial, but if you do, you get a special reward. Now, don't let this scare you off. Don't keep bashing your face against him if you can't beat him straight away. Once you get to Round Table Hold, you will unlock the Codex, and then you can retry the tutorial whenever you want, as many times as you want. So if you can beat him straight away, your reward will be a high tier relic with 3 different buffs on it, which is going to be absolutely fantastic to help you get through your first few runs. But as I say, it's not absolutely crucial. In fact, I skipped the tutorial and forgot about it for about 50 hours. So it's definitely not needed, but if you can do it, it is quite helpful. Next up, as you are exploring each expedition, when you open the map, you will see symbols on all of the camps that you can go and clear out. These symbols correspond to the most likely reward that you will get for beating the boss of that camp. So if it's a poison camp, usually one of the loot orb drops will be a poison weapon. Now, it's not guaranteed, but it's a high chance. And each Nightlord has a weakness that you will know before you enter into that expedition. So ideally what you want to do is focus on camps that have the highest chance of dropping you a reward that corresponds to your current Nightlord target's weakness. So if you are facing off against Tricephalus, the dog, the first boss, he's weak to holy, so you want to look out for holy camps. And to add to this, if you don't see a single camp on your map that is the corresponding weakness of the Nightlord, that's fine. This is a thing that can sometimes happen. And when that does happen, it means one of the merchants on the map will sell that equipment for you instead. So there is absolutely always at least some loot or a merchant where you can go and acquire gear corresponding to the Nightlord's weakness. It's now up to you to go and explore as much of the map as possible and make sure that you go and grab that to give yourself an easier time against the Nightlord. Next up, you will sometimes see red phantoms and grey phantoms in the game. These have 2 very different purposes, both are just as important as the other. So, Grey Phantoms, just like in any other FromSoft game, these are real players in real time doing their own expeditions. And if you do happen to see one of these Grey Phantoms, make sure you run through each other. By connecting with a Grey Phantom from another world and effectively high-fiving each other and saying good luck on your run, you will both replenish a portion of your ultimate arts gauge for free. This is such a powerful buff. Being able to spam your ultimate arts more than usual is just so overpowered, and isn't something that we had access to during the review period because there just wasn't enough of us. So having these Grey Phantoms is going to be such a huge boon, so make sure you do keep your eye out for them. And next up are Red Phantoms. These are the corpses, effectively, of fallen Nightfarers. Again, actual players, and if you interact with them, it will cause them to drop all of the armaments that they were carrying at their time of death. And on top of their unique traits, equipment obtained in this manner will also bear unique passive traits that differ depending upon the Nightfarer that carried it. So for instance, if you pick up equipment dropped by the corpse of a wilder, along with its usual stats, it will also give you an increase of +1 strength and +1 dex. The recluse, on the other hand, it'll be +1 int and +1 faith, so it'll buff 2 of your stats corresponding to the primary stats of that Nightfarer. So it's always really good to loot these and have them in your possession just for the additional stat boost. And on top of that, an even bigger boon for other players, if you loot some of these items and then die with them in your possession, the grief contained within them will grow, and the bonuses they provide will be increased for the next person that acquires them. So if you get particularly lucky, you could loot some insane gear from Red Phantoms that will effectively double your health and your strength for the rest of the run. This next tip is a big one for the Elden Ring and Dark Souls veterans in general. Do not neglect your character skills. I know we have been taught time and time again in these games to save your big, powerful stuff for if you truly need it. For instance, if you ever come upon a Blessing of Marika in your playthrough, you will never ever use that item, just in case there is ever a better time to need to use it. This is the exact approach I took with character skills, and especially with ultimate arts, for too long in Nightreign. The cooldown is always far quicker than you think, and remember, speed is key, so don't always try to save them for the absolute most opportune time to use them. Just spam them. Even if you then come upon a boss and you're like, oh damn it, I've just used my ultimate art, it would have been perfect here. Never dwell on that, never regret that. It's all about speed. And it replenishes so quickly that you'll probably be able to pop it again halfway through the fight anyway. Obviously, there are some exceptions. There are some character skills or ultimate arts that are only useful in specific situations, in which case, obviously, save them. But if it's just raw damage and it's just going to pump out how quickly you defeat camps and defeat bosses, keep using them. There's absolutely no reason not to. Speed is key. You want to clear as much of the map as possible, and your skills and your arts are the way to do this. Next up, do try to plan your route around Churches of Marika. Hit at least one on the first day and try to get all of them before the Night 2 boss. Now, there are of course other important things on the map as well, such as doing at least one cave to get a smithing stone 2, and maybe the shifting earth event if you have that active. But you only start with 3 flasks, and you can more than double this before you get to the Nightlord. And in pretty much every circumstance, this is exactly what you want to do. More than doubling your healing is going to drastically increase your survivability, and survivability is the aim of the game. Nightlords have gigantic health pools and take a while to go down, so the more utility and the more survivability you have, the better. Next up, do not forget about the brand new, much faster version of sprinting called Surge Sprint. Don't just hold the dodge button to run a bit faster when moving. There is a new dedicated sprint button, which is L3 on the controller. This is significantly faster. You effectively run as fast as if you were permanently mounted on Torrent, and you basically want to get into the habit of using this almost exclusively. There are a few exceptions for using the standard run rather than surge sprint. And to give you one great example, when you are in night bosses and the Nightlord final fight, when you sprint, your stamina will no longer replenish, it will actually drain. So if you're just running around the world, when you surge sprint, you'll use a small amount of stamina to start the surge sprint, but then your stamina will start to replenish. However, it acts like it does in the base game when you are fighting night bosses, and it will start to drain. So in these fights, you might want to stick to regular sprinting because it will drain a little bit slower, and you won't have that initial burst of stamina deplete as you start to surge sprint. So sometimes standard running is a bit better in night bosses because you want to conserve a bit more stamina, but obviously bearing in mind, bosses have been tailored for how quickly you move. So they can run around the battlefield very, very quickly, and sometimes regular running isn't going to help you keep up with them. So, as I say, for the most part, 90% of the time, surge sprinting is what you want to get ingrained into your muscle memory. It's far more important, it's far more beneficial in basically every situation. Next up, and this is something that I covered during the closed network test guide that I did, make sure you pick up all 6 weapon slots, because passives will always apply as long as there isn't a red hand on them. So there is one exception. There are certain weapons where if you don't have that weapon equipped as your active weapon, it will show a red hand over the passive, and this means that that only applies if you are currently wielding the weapon. With that exception aside though, every other passive from every single weapon will apply no matter what weapon slot it's in or whether you are using it or not. So you want to make sure that all 3 of you have a full repertoire of 18 weapons between you before you get to the Nightlord, because that means you have a total of 18 passive weapon effects helping you to be significantly stronger. And a kind of side tip here is you want to get really good and really quick at menuing, because you will be encountering dozens, if not hundreds of weapons throughout every expedition, and you want to be able to quickly skim through them all and be able to quickly discard the ones that have passives that aren't as great for you, so you can shout out to your teammates if they might benefit from them, and then you can just as quickly grab the new ones you've just found that have even better passives to make sure you're absolutely as powerful as you can possibly be. Another important thing to note, you'll probably see a few of my earlier videos and be like, hang on, how's he got that? How is he fighting this person? Why does he look like that? Quite a few of the game's features aren't unlocked initially because they don't want to bombard you with everything. So here's a few things you'll need to do to unlock the majority of the game's systems. So firstly, you will need to beat the Tricephalus to unlock most of the other bosses. So Tricephalus is the big 3-headed dog that we've seen quite a lot up to this point, and when you beat him, you will unlock the next 6 bosses. Then, when you have beaten 4 bosses total, so including him, plus another 3, you will then unlock access to the final boss. And on top of this, when you have beaten 2 bosses total, that could be a different boss or it could be Gladius twice, so just any 2 Nightlord kills at all, that's when you will unlock most of the rest of the game's systems, including the ability to change out your shifting earth and also buy and change cosmetic outfits for your characters. And do also please note on top of this, as you're progressing through completing remembrances, beating more bosses with more characters, go and check the shop periodically too, because more and more stuff will unlock for you to purchase. Next up, this is a really great tip for how to start out pretty much every single match. 99% of the time, you will be dropped off directly in front of a small camp of enemies. This is a tiny camp with like 6 enemies that won't appear physically on the map. And what you want to do is just head forward and clear out this within the first 15 to 20 seconds, and that will give you enough runes to level up to level 2 immediately. And there will always be a site of grace very, very close to this camp as well. This way, as soon as you hit level 2, you'll pretty much double your starting stats. Now you'll be able to go and tackle something like a fort or a ruined church without too many worries, take out the boss there, and now as long as you clear out the enemies in that area as well, you'll probably be able to hit level 4, and at this point, you can now do almost all day 1 content. This is how I recommend you start 99% of matches. This whole process will take 3 or 4 minutes max. As I say, you're all now level 4, and it's going to be much easier to tackle anything you want to do, be that character objectives, or invasion events, or caves, or whatever it is that you want to do. Now, the previous tip leads me absolutely perfectly into this one. This is about the only thing you definitely shouldn't do on day 1, and that is trying to fight formidable enemies. Now, you won't know which bosses are formidable until you encounter them, but what you will know is you'll hit them and their health bars will barely move. There are a couple of formidable enemies on the map on day 1, and they will all be revealed to you at the start of day 2. It will say formidable enemies have appeared, and 4 or 5 of these big red-purple dragon heads will appear on your map. These are formidable bosses, which are much stronger than regular bosses, but they obviously drop far better rewards. As you play more and more, you'll be able to identify quite quickly if it's a regular boss or a formidable boss. However, if you're still unsure, as soon as you encounter one, just open your mini-map and you'll see, based on the picture on the map, whether it's surrounded by red or not. If it isn't regular boss, if it is formidable boss. And then on day 2, you want to be focusing as many of these down as you can, because the more you kill, the higher your chances of legendary rewards. Next up, as you would in Elden Ring and Shadow of the Erdtree, you will sometimes find breakable statues. Obviously, in Elden Ring, you would break these by leading large enemies to them, which you can still do in Nightreign, but it's a bit of a pain because usually they're quite far away. So how you break these statues is with any terrain-altering ultimate art. So the Iron Eyes ultimate and the Raiders ultimate specifically, I know these two break them. I believe the Guardians does as well. I'm not sure about the Wilders, but basically I think you've got like 3 characters total that can break these statues with their ultimates. Now, is it worth it? Perhaps not. They have a tiny % chance of dropping a high level smithing stone. Usually they just drop a low level smithing stone, which isn't particularly worth it because you can just buy them from shops. But that's how you break the breakable statues. They do contain a bit of other loot as well, so if you're really desperate for loot and you haven't been able to get much done on your particular run, maybe go ahead and break it for a bit of extra loot. I'd say usually it's not worth it, but I thought it's worth you knowing how to break them, just in case you decide you need it for your current run. And the last tip for this first guide video, as I say, there'll be plenty more to come, so make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit follow if you're watching over on TikTok. But the last tip I've got you for this series of tips is to look out for a Wending Grace. This is a particularly rare item that you can sometimes find in shops, but usually is part of any legendary rewards that you find. This will allow you a free self-revive if you die. Please note, if you're playing as part of a team, it will only kick in when everybody dies, and it will bring back the person who had a Wending Grace, and they can then try and go around reviving the rest of the team. However, if you're doing solo expeditions, this item is incredibly powerful because there is no one to revive you, so it effectively gives you a second life. And the Wending Grace item came in very, very clutch for me during multiple solo expeditions and allowed me to solo Libra, the Beast of Madness. This thing is an absolute fucker, and the Wending Grace allowed me to completely wipe the floor with him when I fumbled one of his more powerful attacks. But I know most people will be playing in co-op, so it won't be as useful for you. So please do note, if you find one, don't hog it for yourself if you're not a class that excels in getting your team back from the dead. So if you have an Iron Eye in your team, it's always better to give the Wending Grace to the Iron Eye because he is hands down the best character at reviving everyone else. That's it for the top 12 tips I have for you today, my friends. Just in case I didn't mention it earlier, make sure you join the Discord if you'd like to find loads and loads of teams to play with so that you've always got people to play Nightreign with, no matter what time of the day it is. And with that, all that's left for me to say is thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.